Hey, I am Melissa with Vintage Therapy, and I am here with Danny, also from Vintage Therapy. And the topic on this episode is I want to establish an offline home base. So, what does that mean? What that means to me, based on the surveys that I've been taking from vendors who have begun their vintage adventure online and they would like to kind of maybe venture out into the real world with it. And so my thought is that establishing a home base can be many things, and it does not necessarily have to be opening your own shop. It can be having a space at a mall, it could be having a space at a show. It's all about consistency and making a commitment to it. And then if you want to create a home base, that's what we're going to talk about. How do you do that? What's the easiest way to do that? Is opening your own shop the easiest way to do that? Hell no. So in my mind, the easiest way to establish an offline home base is either via a regularly scheduled market or a solid mall that you can have a space at. And so I think what Danny and I are going to talk about are, what are the pros and cons of this? And how do you make that happen? So, your thoughts, sir?
Well, I'm old enough to remember before the days of the internet when that wasn't even an option, which I'm actually glad it happened this way for me because it gave me a little bit of a perspective that I had 3 or 4 or 5 years before the internet kind of hit. To be like in the real world, that the old time real world, and then through an evolution of, oh my gosh, multiple websites that we would have. We were in the fairly early days of selling on eBay when things, sold for crazy money for like no good reason. Um, uh,
Oh, that was fun, wasn't it?
yeah, it lasted for about 10 minutes, it seemed, but you know, um,
Yeah.
I was there. I always say it was like I was almost at the beginning, but not really.
Like you could sell this ballpoint pen for like $20.
Yeah, because it's just to buy something on the internet was exciting. Can you imagine? But um, but flash forward to 2021, where now people have lots of options to do things, and maybe they already have an online store. They're selling on eBay. They're selling on Etsy. They have their own website. They're Instagram dealers. There's right. There's every variation on a platform. Anything else that's gonna that's gonna come along. Um, and what I liked about this topic is I think it brings up a number of issues. And the first thing that comes to my mind is that if you have to really kind of decide what kind of person you are. Like you say, well, I'm really good at selling things, which is great if it's true. And I think a market decides if you're good at selling things and not necessarily yourself. You can say, I'm really good at selling things. I don't sell a lot, but I'm good at selling. Well, then you're not really good at selling if you're not making any money. Because I'm just going with people, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So there's that. There's that. And if you really are good at selling, what I would say, or think you are, and you want to do that, you should absolutely be looking at markets such as yours, other markets in town or nationally, these types of markets.
Or in whatever area you live in.
Yeah. And I would say, since we're talking vintage, I'm going to say, let's be honest, more of an upscale market, not where somebody's selling,
Socks and Sharpies and
rabbits,
underwear.
yeah, animals, livestock. There's a market. You go up in Wisconsin and somebody's got a whole cage of rabbits.
Oh, are you kidding? We used to go to this great little market in Michigan. It was in Armada. It was the Armada flea market. Chickens, bunnies,
Yeah.
all kinds of cool vintage too.
7 Mile Fair outside of Milwaukee, you know. Yeah. But there's snakes and then somebody selling porn and it's just like but my point is it's going to be because you're going to go there with your your Heisey glass and your vintage tiaras, I don't know, whatever you're selling, and go, this is not the place for you. So first, go to different markets. Find a market that you really like, that you think is going to be a good fit for you and what you're doing, right? And because if that doesn't work, nothing's going to work. You're not in the right, have the right feel for this is going to work for you. It's just not going. It's good. Don't climb the mountain. It's not going to work. So I think first you need to find a space like that. Now, and then we'll kind of flip this a little bit and say, as long as we're on the same topic, if you're going in and say you'd really rather be in a mall and have somebody sell things for you, same thing. Go there. Don't call them and ask them 20 questions, because I'm going to answer about 3 and then I'm going to need to hang up because I'm busy. Go to these markets and look around and say, is this the kind of market that's good for me? Antique mall,
Right.
that would fit with what I'm selling. Do your homework, do your research. Don't just going, I got a truck full of stuff and we're going to be moving in tomorrow. No. Do your research and make sure this is going to be a good fit for the kind of merchandise you're going to be selling. Otherwise, again, it's not going to work, because you're starting another phase of your business. So look at it like a business. Do your homework. Sounds simple, but you'd be surprised how people just, I'm sure you've got stories. People who just like weren't really ready for this. Now let's go back to markets such as yours. Selling is an interesting thing. And I'm going to say because if we're going to have another top 10, it's selling on the positive. Selling on the positive, which is hard, because when somebody comes along and says, oh, you get this mug, $10. Are you crazy? I'll give you 5. They just, wherever they're, you can't just say, get out of my booth. Well, you can, but it's really not a good idea, right? So, because there's going to be a lot of negativity thrown at you, and you can't do that. It's just not going to work. Of course, even to the public, it's always like, it should be, what's the best you'll do on this? Well, that's a positive, right? That's a positive question. But the people who are just knocking the merchandise, it's tough. It's still tough for me. Bitter pill to swallow. And you go into 6 reasons of why that's worth $10. Or, it can be like, I just don't discount anything under $10. Just, again, that's not a positive. That's not really a negative. I think you have to have a tough skin. I know you have to have a tough skin to be able to sell things. And it can also be, like a guy only wants to pay $5 for the mug. What else are you interested in my booth? Upsell.
Right.
And then, because could very well be you've got 50 cents in that mug and you don't really care. You'd actually take $5 for it, but you don't want to give this guy the satisfaction of that, right? But again, it's being on the positive.
And I think this brings us to the next most important point of this topic, which is, what do you do once you get there? So you've made a choice. You're picking a space to be your offline home base. Okay. So let's say you picked Vintage Garage and you've decided that you're going to do the whole season. Okay. That's a great idea, because it creates consistency. All right. Customers come, they know where you're going to be, they know where to find you. You are establishing a relationship offline and leading them to your online store, which is the same thing that you would do if you were at Broadway. To me, the way I see it, a booth at my show costs $175. So if you're smart, you can use that $175 as advertising. We had 1,300 people come through. 1,300 people who paid $6 to get in because they love vintage that much and want to buy. So if that's the cheapest advertising you're ever going to get. I mean, $175 to get in front of people who all love vintage. Now what are you going to do? So, you've got to start there. So I can't tell you how many people have told me after the first show they've done, "Yeah, this didn't work. I didn't sell very much." Well, that's because as human beings, the customers at the garage are also building relationships. You know, they're coming in and they're building relationships. You're new. Maybe they're going to look at you kind of sideways. But when they see you next month and the month after, you are now part of something. And it builds trust that, you know,
Because customers have their favorite dealers.
they do.
And again, whether in your market or my market, any market, customers are very savvy, and they'll get in in that gate, they'll get in the door right to that booth, right to that booth.
Right.
And that doesn't happen overnight. Not at all. That can actually take, a number of months, maybe a year or two, and or it doesn't happen. And I've certainly seen that too. And then you have to ask yourself, why is that? Which we've talked about
Right.
merchandising.
Right.
More,
And
more,
that's a different.
more about that. And
Sure.
the other thing I want to make is that, and this expression that I use is that, I'm not kidding. People need to think about this. This is show business. And you know the definition of show business is the business of showing. It's exhibiting. It's presenting. Nobody's asking you to do a tap dance,
Such a good point.
right? It's show business, which means you're on. And when you're selling, you're on. That booth you have is a stage. And if you need to act, and I mean act because it's not your personality to really sell or be, upbeat. I'm just kind of a sad sack. Well, you know what? No, while you're doing that show, you are acting as a successful dealer, because then you'll be one. Because that's what people are there for. That's what people are there for. They want to see the stuff, and you need to facilitate the sale, which also means don't get in the way of a sale. And I'm gonna throw this out there, is because I really believe in the honesty of this. We sell lots of vintage clothing, and I'll tell people try on clothes, the dressing room, they come out and they want my opinion. If I don't think it looks good on them, I absolutely tell them.
Sure.
Absolutely, no question about it. If something like fits like a glove, but I'll say, you know what? Again, on the positive, hey, this doesn't need any tailoring. You won't have to spend any. This is ready to go. Right? Tell them something positive. Look for something positive to say. But again, if it isn't right, and it could be, or you just say it's a piece of pottery, right? And even though you have it marked on the tag that there's a chip on it, is found, point that out. Point that out. Be honest with them. People are funny in this. Oftentimes, and this has happened many times, I can actually tell somebody, I don't think this is for you. Maybe you'll find you something else. Maybe you'll find another one else. And they buy it anyway. But because I'm being honest. And I mean it. I mean it. People also tend to they're going to do what they want. They want to hear a response. They want to hear a response. And it needs to be an honest, even a negative is a positive, if you know what I'm saying, if you're being honest with that. And people will still do what they want. And they kind of go in an opposite direction of what I have to say, I've noticed, and then they buy things. So,
Well, that's part of that relationship. And if you're going to choose to have a home base at Broadway, okay, you need to be able to trust. I mean, if I had a booth at Broadway, which I would love to, if I was ever going to have another booth, I would want it to be at Broadway. But here's a couple of things that I would have to do. Number one, I would have to decide, what is the point of my booth here? Okay? If the point is to establish an offline base, then I want that booth to showcase the best of what I have to offer. Okay? I also would need to continuously manage that, clean it, move things around. If I want that to be my home base, I gotta dazzle some people, and I need to do this for a significant amount of time. To be in a mall and then not be there every week to freshen things up and make things better, add merchandise. If I don't do that, then that doesn't work for
Absolutely.
me or you. Okay. But in my mind, it would be a lot easier for me to set up a booth at somewhere that is already established and I can be a part of that. While now can dealers put business cards out
Yeah. Yes.
in their booths?
We
Okay,
we encourage them to, and I'll say even
that's
those,
great.
this is your place of business, so that they might even buy something offline or whatever, as long as I know about it. And somebody's going to drop off something for me, or they're getting mail there. No,
Yeah,
yeah, like why would I not? But to your
right.
point, which is just critical, um, uh, you need to maintain it. The dealers who do the best, it's again not rocket science, are the dealers who come in regularly, once a week, once every 10 days. Yeah, is probably about best. Restock it, absolutely move things around, dust, vacuum, double check that your tags are still there. Tags fall off. There are
People
customers
take
who take
tags off.
tags off of
Right.
things to slow. I don't have the money for it, so I'll take the tag off and come back next week, and then
And
nobody
hope
else will buy
that
it.
maybe they'll just throw a
Figure it out. Yeah.
50 cents
Um,
at me or
yeah.
something.
There's all kinds of variations on, in this business. Um, those are the deals that generally do well. The ones I don't see, some of them are just get lucky and they sell anyway. But I know they could do better. I
Sure.
absolutely know they could be better. And I stay on people. That's just my nature.
Well,
Nicely,
you need to,
nicely.
because
Yeah,
if you
you
want to,
need to,
you need
right?
to
And
maintain the integrity of your shop as a whole.
honestly, rarely do I get dealers who complain about their sales, because they know. The ones who aren't coming in, they know why. I don't have to say. Honestly, it's more like quasi shaming them, going like, not a good period. Hello.
And I mean,
You
what's
know,
wrong with that?
yeah,
You're trying to offer up the best of the best for your customer base.
right,
So it's like, and it's their customer base. So, like me, again, I'm just going to use myself as an example, as if I was going to have a booth, all right? If I had that booth, I would also make sure that I had a card there that had my information on it.
yeah,
You ever have any questions? Call me. Hey, check out my Instagram.
right,
Hey, check this out. So now, the other thing that would be super important and critical to this is you promoting where your home base is.
mhm,
All right. So if I'm at Broadway and my home base and my merchandise is in my booth at Broadway, I need to promote that.
right,
So I need to promote that on my social media. I need to show people things that I've just added to my booth. Um, so, that is also critical to building your business.
right.
Same thing with the garage. And maybe you hear this, I've seen it, I'm paying my booth rent. Well, that's enough.
Yes,
You should be doing everything for me because I'm paying for my booth rent.
yes, right, right. And yet, when the I don't hear that too often, but again, I've got a lot of long time dealers, so I think
I've
they know what my answer is going.
get
They know what my answer is going to be.
calls.
You
That's
know, what are you doing? I mean, let's say we've got 50, 60 dealers, okay, and we're promoting ourselves as best we can. But if all 50, 60 dealers were doing this, even just promoting themselves, I mean, there's other dealers, which is wonderful. They'll run through them all, just take pictures of all kinds of booths,
and
not
I
just
think
their own
that's
stuff.
brilliant.
Yeah, which is brilliant, Now, and then I have dealers who really do nothing. And to me, they're kind of piggybacking on everybody else. And there is a bit of, again, I'm going to use the word shame, because I'm like, hey, you've got great stuff. These people, they're kind of doing the homework for you here, and I am too, but you need to kick in here, because you've got great stuff, and you're doing yourself a disservice by not promoting yourself within the store.
Right.
And oh my gosh, how powerful we are when, and I would say offhand, half of them do, which is great. And there's, it's not expecting miracles here, but makes a huge difference. I mean, one of the reasons we're successful is that my dealers do this. They do, and then for the most part they help one another. I hear about this all the time, where they had a pricing question and hey, would so and so know about this? And I give them their email and they interact and they have their own, transactions or whatever. They're helping one another. Back to what we talked about before. There's
Really
ignore the competition. That's not competition. They're your friend, right? Most people, not everybody. There's a lot of just renegades out there who just don't play in groups, and don't want to.
okay.
You know,
If they
that's
want to,
okay.
fine.
That's okay. But I think there's that dynamic that in both of these multi-dealer markets, it works, and it's there. But I will say too, it's going back to what we were talking about before. Malls are better for people who really either aren't good at selling or just don't have the time. You know, they got to work around. They got to work around like your schedule to do a show, which is a whole lot of work. Oh my God, setting up and breaking it down. Where you move into a mall, once you set it up, then you need to maintain it, which is still work,
Huge.
but nothing compared to like doing a show.
No.
Having done shows here for years myself, oh my gosh, that's a lot of work. But another thing I'm going to throw out here is just as an answer is people should consider doing a pop-up, getting together with maybe I'd say at least 2 other people who perhaps don't carry what you're carrying. Maybe you're selling mid-century modern furniture, bring in a clothing dealer, bring in a jewelry dealer, bring in a pottery person, bring in a glass person, and there's tons of what's going on now, lots empty stores, lots of owners of buildings that'd be like open. And there've been a number of pop-ups that's happened in town. I've never heard of one that wasn't successful.
Well, that's good.
People are
Yeah,
hungry.
we did it. I mean, think about it. We did that spot on Granville there on the corner, Broadway and Granville, and that was no bathrooms, no heat, no carpet,
Yes.
concrete floor.
But it was great. I remember
it was fantastic.
It was fantastic. I bought well there. There was stuff. There was stuff. People just want the stuff. People, they're. But
Well,
I mean,
it's being able to. The only problem with that is, can you bring people in? Can you market it and bring people to it? That's your challenge.
Yeah, right.
So,
and that kind of goes back to that's only going to happen from social media. I mean, running ads in the Tribune these days, that's not going to do it.
Well, and it's also going to come from, again, if you make Broadway Antique Mall your home booth, all right, and you've got cards out, and you have been there for a couple of years, you consistently sell, and you do pretty well, and you're going to have a little pop-up. Well, you put that card in your booth too.
Yep.
And you talk about it online. And hey, if you want more details, I've got cards in my booth over at Broadway.
Right.
Stop in and grab one and check it out.
Right.
So it's like this constant flow of promoting yourself, the store you're at, the event you're going to do. And all of that will come back to benefit you if you do it well.
Yeah. Or
even if listen, you don't even have to do it well. You just have to be consistent.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
You even if it's just a post online that says, hey, I'm going to be in somebody's backyard. I just happen to know a couple of dealers in Milwaukee who did a pop-up in someone's backyard during the pandemic, and they killed it.
Yeah.
And because they had a good enough social media presence to bring some people in. Yeah. And that took years of building up before that.
Yeah, that's a key there. Yeah.
Big time.
So there are options. There are things you could do in the real world that can help your online presence.
Right. And there are also options that aren't going to cost you. If you can open your own store, but why would you?
Oh,
if you could set up at an established one,
right,
and leave it to us to tell you, starting your own show and starting your own mall is no easy task.
No.
So glom on and grab a hold and ride the wave with something that's already working.
We've always had a waiting list. I need to throw that out there.
I know you always have, because I never.
We've always had a waiting list.
Yeah. FYI, everyone, I have asked many times if I could have a booth. There's a waiting list.
Yeah.
I do not have a booth, and I do not get ahead of anybody in line.
yeah, yeah,
How that works.
yep, yeah. It's not who you know, apparently.
Definitely not. No, but I'm going to tell you something else. I mean, I could be persistent as hell and say, I want my, I could have signed up for your list 5 years ago. But here's something that I'm not taking a booth there. And here's why. I would not maintain it as well as I should. I would not manage it as well as I should. And that would do you a disservice.
Yeah.
And me a disservice.
Yeah.
So I'm at least honest enough with myself at this point to know I don't have the time. And if you're going to do it, you need to commit.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Commit. If you get a Broadway Antique Market booth, well, then you got really lucky because there is a big, long list. So if you're not prepared to get that booth and really, really capitalize on it and make the most of it, you shouldn't.
Right. And I will tell people who often who want a booth, and I just feel they're not ready, and which is not you. You're ready. You're just too busy. Is that they need to do markets like yours. They need to do markets like yours. Randolph, Rick Rand does a World's Fair show. There's other vintage clothing shows. There's things as things open up. Get your feet wet.
Yeah.
Because there are people who just think, okay, I got all this stuff. I could do this. I could do this. Yeah. And maybe they can't. But you need to have some experience. And I think even like certainly when Edgewater was in business down the street, really the same thing. Those were professional dealers.
Yeah.
And when people ask about this, and I'll say, no, these are professional dealers. These are dealers who do shows around the country. These are people who have been doing this for decades. These are people who are experts in their field. When people are questions and price guides and things, these are the resource people that they use. I'm often, I shouldn't say shocked, but just how fantastic many of my dealers are and what they know. Their knowledge is infinitesimal, right? That I don't spend that much time talking to them because I'm trying to sell their stuff and we're trying to catch up on life. But these are professional dealers, and that's how you just don't jump into that. And I'm not saying Broadway's all that. It's not. It's really not. But just like I've mentioned on previous episodes, Jeff and I struggled for years to get into the Pier shows in New York because to us, it really was at the time. That was the top. That was one of the top shows. If you can get into that, you need to be good enough to get into that. So that was kind of a life goal that we then accomplished.
Well, at that time, let me ask you this question. At that time, if you had gotten into the Pier show and you were doing every Pier show, what was it, like twice a year at some point?
Three times a year, yeah.
Really? Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. So that could have been your home base. That was a good enough show, and it brought in so many people that if you were consistent and you were doing that show every time, that would be considered a home base.
Yeah.
Again, a place that people can see your face, pick up your business card, and then follow you online or whatever until the next show.
Right.
But people sometimes really do want to know who you are. They want to know your face. They want to talk to you. They want to know that you are a professional. And a lot of that stuff goes with that home base. Brimfield is another great example. Brimfield, I know a lot of people who do that 3 times a year. Mm-hmm. And that is a home base for them that people can come and see them in person. And I think it's a great idea to invite people. Hey, I'm going to be here. What if you were at Broadway and I said to some people, hey, listen, I'm going to be over there. I'm going to be cleaning up my booth. I'm going to hang out a little bit. Why don't you come up and meet me or come up and let's look around together. Maybe that'd be fun, whatever. Get people together, walk around. It's all going to benefit you in the end.
Yes.
And, of course, if you want to have a party at Broadway Antique Mall in your booth, you better check with Danny first. But, if somebody came to you and said, hey, listen, I've got 10 people that want to come here and meet me and hang out, what can I do? Wouldn't you work with them to figure something out?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. we've done all kinds of private functions. I call them private functions. Uh,
Yeah.
but to the point of when I was talking about the peer show, one of the things we found was how many customers would come through and they'd go, "Oh, you're the guys from BAM. You're Broadway." And then they felt comfortable to buy from us. So and then we realized, well, we could have sold this to them in Chicago, but we had to drive it 800 miles so they could buy it from us in New York. But still a feather in our cap. They were excited though that we were there. It's like, oh, we know these guys, for as silly as that may be. But people like
No,
that.
it's not.
Well,
That
it's
makes
comfort.
sense.
It's comfort and confidence in who you're buying from. Where we've
Yes.
said this before, somebody come in and into your booth, be it your market or my market, multiple times and not buy anything, and then they do. Then it's that they have to feel comfortable and kind of safe. And I'm not sure, like you said, when you're the newbie, yeah, those first shows, where in a mall or either market, any show, when you're the newbie, it's tough. You're breaking new grounds there.
True. And you have
But
to be consistent and patient.
yeah,
Being
yeah,
somewhere for a month or doing one vintage garage where you don't do so hot, I tell everybody you can't expect that from your first show. If you do great at your first show, that's amazing. Good for you.
yeah,
But if you don't, then it's because you haven't kind of figured out the crowd yet, or you haven't figured out the merch yet. And at $175 a month, that is the one of the cheapest ways you can actually put your face out in front of people and show off the things, and show off your taste,
yeah,
show off your skills, show off what kind of eye you have. you know the ones who do the best at the vintage garage are the ones who are constantly sharing, this is coming, this is coming, this is coming. I took a 16-second video of two vendors whose booths were just overflowing with people. I know both of them. I know they've both been with the show since day one, and they are now very experienced and they know the market. And because of it, they kill it.
yeah, yeah.
And it took time. They spent 7 years or 8 years with us uptown, and are here for Evanston too. And it's all about how you decide you're going to do it and committing to it.
Yeah. See, I think that's, again, we're back to what people need. When did Uptown Garage start?
2012.
2012. Okay. And okay, so Wrigleyville first store we had was 1990. But point being is, we're saying people.
Disappointing people since 1990.
that's our expression. It's trademarked. Don't anybody buy that euro.
No, I need to use that. I love that.
1990. And that comes from people coming in. I want this, I want that, and we don't have it. So I just say we're just disappointing people like left and right. But our point is that these things take time. And come on, it's kind of funny, folks. It's the antique business. It's the vintage business. It's a business about time, about stuff that's old. And then we're going to say like, so hello. And think about this with, okay, a collectible, that's got to be 20 years old. You want to do the numbers?
Vintage garage, our law is 25 years or older makes it vintage.
And so, so that puts it into the barely the mid 90s. So, and I it's always curious that people kind of bristle when you start pointing out numbers to them, like, well, you're making me feel old. It's an old business. It's the antique business. It's different than any other business, and we've talked about this for like lots of reasons. So don't get hung up on this time element.
Right.
My other thing is that, and I've seen this happen too. If the first time at bat you hit a home run, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because you're going to, in the back of your head, you're going, hey, I did it last time. And then the second time, it doesn't happen again. And the third time.
It's actually a phenomenon that I have observed.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it. But here's what I'm going to use, let's see, if you do a show for the first time and it's amazing, okay, and you kill it, you will chase that show for years. And every time you do it, you will say, oh, but remember that one time? I was so good. Oh my God. You'll chase it. And sometimes things are good. Something happens that you don't even realize why or anything. You know what I mean? Like we once had a vintage garage uptown that all first three floors were full. That happened once, one time. And it's like, why? I still don't know. Why we were so busy that one time. But like if you did that show, you're chasing it.
Yeah.
But if your first show sucked, then you spend every minute kind of going, well, this has sucked. This has sucked. And by the time you hit a show, it's a phenomenon. That may be something we need to dissect one day. And that is it's the chase. Maybe, is it like the first time you, oh, I don't want to say that. Let's see.
I thought that too. That
like
virgins are popular, right? You're going to I would say this, it's that as I've had dealers come in, this has happened a number of times. Dealers will move in and they rock. Like for 6 months, they just rock. And it'll be, nobody's seen their stuff before. They didn't know who they were. And but then it gets back into finding the stuff because they've been, stockpiling, hoarding, for maybe a lifetime for them to go and actually do this. And that 6 months that's happened a number of times, and then it just kind of falls off a cliff. Yeah.
So do you think that it's because they put all the best stuff in that they had at the beginning, and then maybe they're out?
I think that's part of it, and I think the other thing is that there's this euphoria that comes with being successful, and you're just going, just like that first show, or those first 6 months, going, it's like the roller coaster ride that never ends, but everything ends.
Right.
And it's really, if you have a really good show, it needs to be, or really good 6 months, a couple months, that you're preparing for it to slow down, and that's going to be okay. But I got some really killer stuff coming in for Christmas, whatever. Because times of year, that's always an element. Things are generally a little slower in the summer. Hasn't been this year, but people are desperate to get out and shop.
Yeah, I know.
That's great. But we'll probably get more back into that seasonality of things. I mean, right now we're seeing tons of tourists. Well, tourists buy smalls. They're not going to buy a dining room set, so I'm not selling dining room sets to tourists. Nobody is, really.
Yeah.
It's doubtful. So, there's the seasonality of things too. But I think it's also just human nature that you're successful and you kind of get maybe a little full of yourself. It's happened to me.
What if I came to you and that happened to me, and I spent 6 months and I had just been killing it, and then I had like 3 months that just sucked, and I came to you and I said, what's going on?
Yeah.
What do you think is happening? Is that a question that you're comfortable answering for people? For the people who rent space from you, what would you say to me if I came to you and said that?
I'm comfortable answering the most uncomfortable of questions. So somebody like that, I would say that they should go through the entire booth and pull things, just pull things. Something that's a turd. That
take some things home that maybe haven't
start editing. Just start editing. Right. You might be able to bring it back later at a lower price point. Fine. But because I think oftentimes booths too, and this is in either market, they can just get too cluttered. They just keep piling on stuff, and people, they've got blinders. It's too much. And our store, it's at your market. You go in there, like you said, you couldn't wait to shop. Well, you're the kid in the candy store, but you're also a professional dealer. But to the public, generally, they get overwhelmed. I mean, too many colors, too many moving parts and all this, and they love it, but you want them to focus on your booth. So I would just say, like, a lot of editing, definitely cleaning, moving things around. Pardon?
Make it inviting.
Make it inviting. I mean, let's move a showcase from that one wall to another wall. Let's paint the booth. There's lots of
Hey,
things. There's lots of things you could do, and then relaunch it again on social media, on Facebook. Rebrand yourself. Um, uh, there's so many. I have no problem now getting people to do it is another story. But opinions, I got. And it will help. I know it will absolutely help. I
sure.
don't know if it's necessarily going to be back to like where they started. You're only a virgin once, but uh, absolutely. We've had a number of them that have turned around. Um, though to be honest, that's an uphill slog. I will often just kind of like, if people want to go at that point, I'm okay with that because it's going to be some work. And you got to admit, if things have been rocking for you for 6 months, you're really probably not going to want to work as hard as you did before.
I
It's
don't know. I mean,
you know,
I try to think about that as if it was me, and it's like that's my business. This is my
yeah,
job.
yeah.
So
I
why
mean, it's
wouldn't I?
it's human nature though. That's who you are though. That's who you are. You're
I mean, you know what?
um,
I've been here for 12 years, and the entire 12 years I've been here, BAM is the best. So if I'm having a problem, I'm gonna go ahead and assume that that problem is me. Once again, looking in the mirror, I mean,
right, right.
you've been here, I have not. So if I'm suddenly after 6 months I'm not selling, well, and I don't know about you, but I appreciate any dealer who comes to me and says, "Listen, I really like it here, but I'm not doing so hot.
Hmm.
What's wrong?"
Oh yeah, yeah. Well,
And I would love to help you try to figure out that.
yeah. Well,
You
and let's
know,
be honest. If they're not making money, I'm not making money. So we charge a
right,
commission. It's not just a rent situation. Whereas in a market such
right.
as yours, there's no commission, so it's different. So
Nope.
I have a
Nope.
vested interest in these people doing well, and if they're not, then it's kind of uh, well, maybe it's tough love. That's what it is. It's
Yeah.
it's it's
Well,
tough
because
love.
you've got bills to pay, and
Right, right.
you have expectations. It's like, no, I'm not taking a percentage,
Yeah.
but if you don't sell, then you're not going to come.
You know, I would tell you. I'll tell you this story. As a dealer, again, very successful dealer. I think he's retired by now, and we he did really well. And then it was one of these. It just kind of fizzled out, and it did not end well. We'll just
Huh.
leave it at that. There was somebody broke something in the booth, and I tried to work with him on it. And he got all upset, and whatever. And it's just stuff. It's just stuff. And I
Right.
said, you know what? This isn't working out. And we did not leave on the best of terms. I'm just being honest. Sometimes that happens to this day. This guy, I should be sending him a check. He raves about us on social media to his friends.
Wow.
Just what a
That's great.
great store and what great guys and da, da, da. But like really good for him. I mean, I think in the end he realized it was him. I mean, it wasn't my
Yeah.
fault. Somebody broke something.
And that is such a big realization to come to as a dealer. I mean,
Yeah,
it really is an eye opener when you can see, oh my God, look at this. Like again, this was my fault, not his fault.
yeah. But it took him.
And
He
now
had
I
to
get it.
leave. He had to leave to come to that
Yep.
realization. And the grass isn't greener on the other side. It's just grass.
Sure.
Um, uh, and I'm shocked, and this still happens. He sends us business all the time.
That's great.
Yeah, what a good guy. What a good guy. And we're cool now. But really, nothing changed other than kind of his attitude. And I was open for it. I was sorry to see him leave because he's really a good dealer. But things happen. Things
Yeah.
happen. It's not the end of the world. Something didn't work out. I'm sure you've had dealers with you for a while and then not be with you and then come back. And it's like the door is open. You had a good experience
Absolutely.
mutually. That's fine. It's fine.
For sure.
Um, so I think we're really talking about is that all these things feed back to one's online presence.
Correct.
You want to do things outside into the real world. There's ways to do this, and then you need to make the most of it. And what's great about, I do want to say, like, this is more of a shout out to you than to myself, is that when you're doing markets like that, no, you're interacting with people where you're buffered from customers if you're in a mall, right? You're not getting their email addresses or their text numbers, or you're not. At a show, you can get all kinds of information if people are willing to give it to you, and you can
Yeah.
build up a database of clients. So, which is
Yeah.
why I encourage people to start there, because it's just a unique opportunity. And oh my gosh, people, I know from what we do in the store with customers is we have a want list. We've always had a want list. So
Yeah.
whenever somebody wants something and put it on an index card, and I've had people, I call them, a year later, okay, we finally got one. Well, I found one now. Well, that's fine, right?
But you still
So,
call them, and
oh
that's
yeah, we
really
reached out, and then yeah, or I don't know how many times we'll sell something online, and somebody says, you know what, I'm going to come. This happened this weekend, and lovely woman came in, picked it up, spent another couple $100. She was so happy that she could buy something and pick it up, which is what we do for, I don't say everybody, but we do. And I held
yeah.
it for her, and why would I not? But in markets, and I don't want to say, I hate to say flea markets. I mean more like vintage garage, upscale markets, because there's really a difference.
Oh,
Um,
for sure.
yeah, in vintage markets, you can actually meet the person. They'll more than willing to give you their contact information of what they're looking for,
Right.
uh, especially when it comes to vintage clothing or almost anything, vinyl, well, at least some specific record. Um, you know, that's gold. That's what businesses are based on, data, and you're getting data directly from the source, which you don't get in a mall. And
True.
we don't call ourselves a
True.
mall, but we're a mall. You don't. There's you're buffered from that. We get the information and then decide how we're going to disseminate it. Though I do try to be, we've talked about this before, very open with the dealers of what people are looking for.
Sure.
So I
Yeah,
do
you do
show
really
them
good
the
with
market.
that. I need to do that myself somehow. I need to figure that out. How to
Yeah,
get like
yeah,
a
it's and then it's maybe 1 out of 10 you make the connection, but that's okay.
sure.
That's fine. People are generally very happy that you went out of your way to help them try and find what it is. Um, and
Well,
so
and I think it's
often,
also a good way to figure out what's hot.
oh, definitely,
To figure out what's hot. That's
yeah,
a good way to figure that out.
yeah,
And that is an upcoming topic, by
yes,
the way.
because
What's hot?
I wouldn't know. Where we go back to, it's listening. It's about
Yes.
listening, right? And here, I mean, we both like to talk, but I learned a whole lot more from listening, and certainly listening to you,
Oh,
and other professionals in the market. And also, I mean, this is why that's affected what I write about. I just love this. I mean, stories come to me because I listen. I didn't make up the story. I just had to listen to it and then relate it. Um,
and
and
because of who you are and your background, you do that so well.
no, I think that's one of the best parts of this, of this business, and also the fact that I didn't see anybody else doing it, and it wasn't necessarily a reason to do it, but it seemed like a hole in the market. And I think even with what we're doing here, with these videos, it's kind of it's filling a niche there that, like
Yeah.
I said, that people don't talk about these things. And like I said, we got into talk about what people collect and why. But I love when there's the stories behind it,
Me too.
and the, we forget about how much happiness this business brings people. Again, I know I've used the line a zillion times. I don't think anybody got excited giving their mother a spatula from IKEA. It's like, oh, I remember that moment. Remember when she came in with the
So
no,
special.
no. But what was the thing this weekend? It was, I think, a West German piece, a lava vase, very large, and it was the woman's dad collects it, and he doesn't have a piece of that monumental scale, and it's a
Nice.
Christmas gift. We got lots of people shopping for Christmas. That's been going on all summer,
That's great.
and
And
I
it's so
had,
personal.
it's personal. I had a young woman who was buying her fiance. She bought a birthday gift and a Christmas gift, and they were both like rare Beatles items. the Beatles comic book from 1964. I think the other one might have been a piece of vinyl. I think it was a piece of vinyl. Revolver, the Beatles Revolver. Anyway, and she was so cute because she said, she goes, you know, I'm so bad about these things. I want to give them both for his birthday, but I'm not, because these things are hard to come by. He's going to get one for his birthday and one at Christmas, and now I'm done, right?
See, I love that story.
Right? And the thing, again, this connects like nothing else. You know, it's got, you know, I got that, you know, that freezer from ADT, you know, it made my Christmas. Yeah. No, it's just, it's personal. And it goes into what that other person collects. I mean, that's what this is about. It's not, whether this being the you know, the daughter or the fiance, they're connected into what their loved one loves, and is going to make them happy. It's such a personal thing, and that's part of this business. That, again, tell me what other business makes people happy? You know, not like this. Not like
Not
this.
that many.
So,
I mean,
you know.
and you know, so going back real quick to the setting up a home base.
Yeah.
What's different about today? Like, I was probably in that first wave of people who learned about antiques and vintage by selling online. See, I didn't start, my family was not dealers. I was not under the table at a flea market. You know what I mean? Like, I did not grow up with this in my blood, so to speak. But I learned online. Then I went to physical markets. And at that time, you couldn't tell anybody that, because that wasn't legitimate. I mean, like, that's how you learned about that? Well, then she probably doesn't know anything. But turns out I kind of did, and still do. But more people today are starting on Etsy and starting on eBay and selling things, learning more, and then wanting to branch out. And I think the point of this today is to say there's plenty of places to do that. You absolutely can. Planning, I think, is key. Understanding what you need to do to keep that space offline working for you needs to be planned out ahead of time. And what your goals are and what your timeline is. You know, even, you know, I've said it already, doing one show is never going to be enough. It's never going to be enough to build you an audience, not even close. Being at band for 6 months isn't going to be enough to really build a solid audience. So you got to think about, you've got to plan. You've got to think about it long term. You cannot just think about things month to month. If you do, it's going to make it a lot harder. So planning is important. Having a physical spot, I think, where people can pick up your business card, or I think that's pretty important. If you want this to be your full-time job for the rest of your life, I think it's important. I think you can do the majority of what you do online, but I think you need somewhere that people can actually see your face sometimes. And I think it'll help your sales online.
And I think it's the line between, well, Jeff and I have an expression, we'll call them the hobbyists, or
Right.
hobby dealers, right? And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But, you know, that
Nope.
you're doing this on the side. But so many people say, well, I want to do that. I love this so much. I want to do it full time. And, you know, we're living proof that one can do that.
Sure.
But to your point, it takes
Not
a lot of
easy.
planning, and then you're going to be on, you're going to have to wear 6 different hats simultaneously. And I want to point this out too, because I've done this. You're not going to be successful on every platform at the same time.
Sure.
In that, you know, you might do really well at the mall, some mall 1 month, right? And then the next month, no. But then you do the show, you do a vintage market, and you do really well. And the next month you don't. Same thing. You're doing really well online. Then that next month you're not. I've been doing this long enough. I can't tell you one time where I could say we're doing a show and the store is open, and I'm selling online, and all 3 things, we're just killing it.
We're just
That is never, 30 freaking years, that has never happened. 2 out of 3, generally it's one thing does well, and that in my mind, is how you end up doing this full time. Is that you've got a number of irons in the fire. You're doing your marketing, you're doing your social media, everything's kind of supporting your
Right.
other
It's a house of
ventures.
cards that you're building.
Yes. And then that's how you can actually, kind of scratch out a living, in this. But it's not going to be simultaneous. It just doesn't happen. Life isn't like that. That's okay. Like, give yourself a
And
break.
you have to be open to that.
Yeah.
You have to be open to realizing I might not be a giant success immediately.
Oh, no, no. Like, I mean, hey, if you're a mediocre success every month, that would be great. Right? I mean, if one thing you're going like, hey, I really did well online this month. I did well at BAM this month. I did well at Vintage Garage this month. But it's not great. And don't beat yourself up about it. And then that's what
Right.
people dealers do. Totally, totally,
And I
totally.
think that a way to combat that is just good planning.
Yeah.
Okay. Deciding, well, planning and execution.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
you,
and it's difficult in that, and this is where it kind of has to come back to one's own expertise. Where should everything go? This item should go on eBay. This item should go on Etsy. This item should go to BAM. This item should go to Vintage Garage. I want, like Vintage Garage, I want to be able to sell this item. I think if I can physically sell this item, as opposed to something that's more of an internet thing where it's going to sit there and it's
Right.
going to, well, it's going to kind of sell itself. Or I don't care how it may take a while to sell this, so that should go online. It might sell a little
Right.
quicker. Maybe that should be. I think the boys at BAM could sell this quicker for me, and maybe for a little more money than I could get online, which absolutely happens. So showing, and this is where every object, when me, I'll go crazy about objects. Every object has its own destination, and you need to decide where that item should go. And don't spend a lot of time on it, but I mean, you just need to be efficient. And it's just where's the best platform for this?
Sure.
I mean, obviously, like vintage clothing, a lot of it sells online, but it's a little bit tougher because trying things on. It's better to be in a market on that. It really depends. But
It's hard. You want to try things on, and if you're selling clothes online, unless you are just an amazing measurer, and people try things on or shoes and they're not comfortable, and that's just something I never buy online.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could see those better in a local thing. But let's say you have that special paper dress or something that has Campbell soup cans all over it. You're going online for a wider audience, then maybe that's a good.
Or it's going in a showcase.
Yes.
Again, is this something that needs to be locked up? Or even like, okay, I really don't want to bring this to a vintage garage. There's just going to be too many fingers on it. Or can't be sitting out on a shelf at BAM. But I think that's really a big part of it, is deciding where your merchandise should go when you're selling on these multiple platforms, and that's really what people want to do.
And it does take time, and you have to get comfortable with it, and then you have to decide which part am I the most comfortable with.
Right.
And maybe that's your center, and then you build the satellites around it.
Right. That's a good example. Yeah, I like that. Satellite.
Yeah, these are your satellite things. I mean, that's how I began. My center was my online business.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the stuff was satellite, and it was really just learning the industry inside and out.
And that's what's cool about this dialogue, is that we come from different places in different time periods. No shame in that. I just remember, like, when you want to find the value of things, and you looked in books. Remember books?
Oh yeah.
and we'd always say, well, when did this book come out? When is this? Well, it's from 1974. Well, is that really an accurate number? When you didn't have a computer in your pocket. What kind of gets me now is that this is old man shakes fist at cloud. Is everybody's got the computer in their pocket, and then so many people feel then they're the expert because they've found it here. And I'm always like, show me the auction result. show me what the auction result was and what
Right.
it's sold for. I don't want to see what somebody's trying to get for it on
I want to see
eBay.
your first dibs price. I
I don't know. Oh no, I don't want to see that. That's not a real number.
Yeah.
Show me a real number. I can tell you what I sold the last one for. That's a real number.
Yeah.
So, but that's, and we really should do here we go again. We really need to do a segment on customers. And I'm not knocking them in any way. I'm just saying, like, not, this is, everybody's an expert. Nobody's an expert. That's really what's
Sure.
come out of this. So, unless you're an appraiser on Roadshow, I'd say, okay, those guys are experts. I am not, you're not, and generally the public is not. So
I don't think we could be on the Antiques Roadshow and be appraisers on there.
what's that?
You really think? You don't think we could be on the Antiques Roadshow and be appraisers?
No,
I do.
No, you do?
Yes, you could.
I see. I love you.
Could. Yeah, we would be at the table for 50s, 60s, and 70s stuff.
Oh well.
And,
yeah.
and honestly, we would be great at that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe so. See it again. I'm not a competitive person. I don't even envision that as a possibility. So I go like, yeah.
I mean, you know what? I always thought the Antiques Roadshow was just so amazing. Like that was I would go to the library and rent them
mm-hmm.
back like 20 years ago and just watch every single one. And I was always amazed by the expertise and them knowing, but super fun to see their excitement in seeing like awesome things like that.
Oh,
but yes, I think you and I could totally do the mid-century, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s stuff that they weren't doing on the roadshow before.
I'll say this. I'll give you John Waters' favorite word: perhaps. Perhaps. So, yes.
I love when.
There's my answer to that one.
I have a friend, Steven. Oh my God, I can't remember his last name. He's from Texas. He knows vintage clothing. He's been on the last couple seasons of Antiques Roadshow, and every time I see him, I yell, "Steven! It's Steven! Everybody, look, it's Steven!" It's like amazing.
I get excited when I see people too. We're all like a little starstruck. Yeah.
Yeah, we know actual appraisers from the Antiques Roadshow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, yeah.
Pretty cool.
It's like 6 degrees of chlamydia.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, but I think it's funny.
I don't know exactly what it means, but I know enough of what it means to laugh. Because I could make that mean any number of things.
Right, and you probably shouldn't. So yeah.
No, probably not.
Well,
I think that probably wraps up this one, and having a home base is a great idea. If you have questions, want to talk about it further, please in the comments, and we'll be back with another new fresh topic pretty soon.
Yeah, more to come. Thanks.
More to come. All right, see you soon.
Bye.